Welcome back to the Philosophy for Philistines channel with your host, Bill Reimer. Today we're going to, I'm going to speak about, you're not going to speak about anything because you're out there and I'm here. But you can leave comments and criticisms. I welcome all open debate and discourse. My point today is that I will attempt to prove that what we're looking at is the emergence of a new religion, a cult, a globalist cult. I pay close attention to this channel's audience as to whether or not you find my arguments compelling. In that vein, I deliberately invite your input and criticisms. It may be the case that so few listen to my concerns that expressing them here is pointless. Nevertheless, I feel compelled to continue to share my thoughts with as many of you as will listen. As well, I am aware of the inadequacy of my own poor pursuit of the truth. We are living in strange times where a positive feedback loop created by mass ideological possession has led to its increase. If we look at the benefits of living in a stable society, a positive feedback loop moves society further away from the target of social equilibrium. The ideas which have created the feedback loop we are living in are being amplified by the extent to which society writ large adopts these beliefs. For 2,000 years, European culture was founded upon basic Christian truths. Fundamental to these truths is the concept of original sin and the need for Christ, the Redeemer. This fundamental understanding of fallen human nature has been replaced by a counterfeit. The idea of original sin seems too unjust and unfair to be deemed acceptable to a postmodern age which affords license to every ungodly behavior which were once deemed to be sinful. The counterfeit involves the belief that we are born tabula rasa, a blank slate without sin, and therefore are infinitely malleable to be shaped into whatever transhumanist form the social engineers desire. This leads to two contradictory phenomena. First, the belief that bad behavior is learned rather than inherited from Adam. Second, that by means of social engineering that mankind can be perfected. This is why it is assumed that negative traits such as prejudice and intolerance of things we see as a threat to social cohesion can be trained out of mankind. It is also why the idea of the need for sacrifice has been moved away from the sacrifice of Christ on the cross to be exchanged for the counterfeit idea of collective atonement. This is nothing less nor other than turning back to the pagan beliefs of the past where sacrifices were made to appease the gods of nature, to placate the weather. Which is why I posit that the globalist elite are the priests of a new religious cult. What are the 10 hallmarks of a religious cult? 1. Absolute authoritarianism without meaningful accountability. 2. No tolerance for questions or critical inquiry. 3. No meaningful financial disclosure regarding budget, expenses such as an independently audited financial statement. 4. Unreasonable fear about the outside world, such as impending catastrophe, evil conspiracies, and persecutions. 5. There is no legitimate reason to leave the cult. Former followers are always wrong in leaving, negative or even evil. 6. Former members often relate the same stories of abuse, and reflect a similar pattern of grievances. Seven, there are records, books, new articles, or television programs that document the abuses of the group and its leaders. 8, followers feel they can never be good enough. 9, the group and its leaders are always right. And 10, the group and its leaders are the exclusive means of knowing truth or receiving validation. No other process of discovery is acceptable or credible. It is interesting to note that the religious zeal inherent to the climate cult was identical to the elite's reaction to COVID-19. Never in my lifetime have I personally witnessed the level of fear, irrational behavior, demonizing, catastrophizing, and moreover, the willingness to sacrifice their well-being to propagate a narrative which has proven to be patently false and alarmist. Worse, there was silencing of public debate as to where the virus originated and why the place of the virus's origins coincided with the development of mRNA technology by Pfizer. In fact, to question the official story of the wet market immediately got one labeled a conspiracy theorist who would be placed in social media hoosgow for daring to challenge the authority of the priests of this cult. The harm their willful ignorance caused and the willingness of the masses to march in blind lockstep was truly remarkable to behold. It was a hysteria which lasted 3 years. And the manner in which the authorities clamped down on those of us who questioned their official narrative during this time was nothing shy of soft totalitarianism on full display. The elite's reaction to COVID-19 and to climate change are pages torn from the same playbook which was used by the same globalist players. From my previous vodcast and blog on cognitive dissonance, I wrote about how alternative opinions create psychological tensions and inner conflicts in the ideologically possessed. Ideologues will react with hostility when presented with information that challenges or disproves their beliefs. This reaction, is known as cognitive dissonance, which is the psychological theory that explains that discomfort. It was first identified by renowned American psychologist, researcher, and author Dr. Leon Festinger, who is responsible for developing cognitive dissonance theory as well as social comparison theory. Challenging the dominance of behaviorism, Festinger spearheaded methods of scientific experimentation used to study psychology. So how does cognitive dissonance manifest itself? Here are a few quotes from Dr. Festinger himself to provide some perspective. A man with a conviction is a hard man to change. Tell him you disagree, and he turns away. Show him facts or figures, and he questions your sources. Appeal to logic, and he fails to see your point. We have all experienced the futility of trying to change a strong conviction, especially if the convinced person has some investment in his belief. We are familiar with a variety of ingenious defenses with which people protect their convictions, managing to keep them unscathed through the most devastating attacks. But man's resourcefulness goes beyond simply protecting the belief. Suppose an individual believes something with his whole heart. Suppose further that he has a commitment to this belief, that he has taken irrevocable actions because of it. Finally, suppose that he is presented with evidence, unequivocal and undeniable evidence that his belief is wrong. What will happen? the individual will frequently emerge not only unshaken, but even more convinced of the truth of his beliefs than ever before. Indeed, he may even show a new fervor about convincing and converting other people to his view. And that's a quote from Dr. Leonard Festinger from the book When Prophecy Fails, a social and psychological study of a modern group that predicted the destruction of the world. Yes, their prophecy failed. Neither has their false means of redemption resulted in salvation. The outcome has been a dystopian nightmare in which the elite offer up humanity as a sacrifice. This is demonstrative of the pagan altar of globalism. They have exchanged a belief in original sin for collective guilt. This is why they view humanity as a blight on the planet, despoiling Mother Earth of her finite resources. The elite are Malthusians, whose prophecies of doom are never forthcoming in any other form other than the damage they wreak on others and their blind zeal to offer us up as sacrifices on the altar of their doomsday cult. A sacrifice which the elite themselves never partake in, as they live in unearned privilege. And the more they are proven to be wrong, just as Dr. Festinger demonstrated in his research on cognitive dissonance, the more they double down on their ideological delusions. It is up to us to expose those delusions, since they stand in opposition to the finished work of the cross of Christ, and of Christ on the cross, who is no longer there, but risen. He led captivity captive. Yes, it is up to Christians to defend the faith against such blasphemous heresy, no matter how many of you have told me that that's not the job of the church. Well, if that isn't the job of the church, then I don't know what the church job is. God bless you. These are things to think and pray about, for they are the issues of our day.